The ship shook hard, and Kim Taiho grabbed the wall to keep himself standing. Red lights flashed everywhere. Alarms screamed through the metal corridors of the horizon. "What is happening?" Taiho shouted into his communicator. "We found something." Park Jisiak's voice came back, tight with tension. "Get to the bridge now." Taiho ran. His boots made loud sounds on the metal floor. Other crew members rushed past him, their faces showing fear and confusion. The Horizon was a small exploration ship. It was not built for fighting. It was built for looking at stars and studying new worlds. Taiho was a xenobiologist. He studied alien life. He had joined the space program 10 years ago because he had nothing left on Earth, no family, no home, just a small apartment in Busan and too many lonely nights. Space gave him purpose. He reached the bridge and stopped. Through the large window he saw something terrible. A beautiful silver ship floated in the darkness. It was damaged badly. Fires burned on its surface. Holes had been torn through its hull. And around it, like wolves around wounded prey, 5 ugly black ships circled and fired. "Pirates," Jisiak said. He stood at the captain's chair, his hands tight on the armrests. "They attacked that transport ship." "It's dead?" "Taiho, the energy readings from that silver ship are like nothing I've ever seen." "It's advanced." "Really advanced? Then why isn't it fighting back?" Dr. Han Mai-Rei asked from her science station. Her fingers moved fast over her screens. "Engines are dead. Weapons are offline. They're helpless." Jisiak turned to look at Taiho. There was a question in his eyes. The Horizon was small. It had basic weapons meant for destroying space rocks, not fighting pirates. If they got involved, they would probably die. But there were people on that silver ship, dying. "We have to help them," Taiho said quietly. "That's suicide," one of the crew members said. "Maybe." Taiho looked at the burning ship. "But what kind of people are we if we just watch?" Jisiak was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled, that same crazy smile Taiho had known since their academy days. "I was hoping you'd say that." He turned to the crew. "Battle stations. We're going in." What followed was not a proper space battle. It was a mess. A desperate, ugly human mess. The pirates had never fought humans before. They expected predictable tactics, clean approaches, logical strategies. Instead, the Horizon flew straight at them like a madman, spinning and weaving in ways that made no sense. Jisiak had turned off the safety systems that prevented dangerous moves. The ship screamed with the stress. Taiho manned a weapons station. He had no real training for this. He fired wildly, not aiming for kills but for chaos. He hit engines. He hit sensors. He made the pirates confused and angry. "Mai-Rei," Jisiak shouted. "Do that thing." "It's illegal," she shouted back. "Do it anyway." Mai-Rei's fingers danced across her console. Suddenly, the Horizon broadcast a fake distress call claiming to be from a military fleet. The pirates' sensors went crazy with false readings. It looked like 100 ships were coming. It was a lie. A desperate, clever lie. 2 pirate ships ran away immediately. The other 3 hesitated. That hesitation cost them. Taiho's wild shots had damaged their systems enough that they couldn't fight properly. One by one, they retreated into the darkness. The bridge was silent except for heavy breathing. "We did it," someone whispered. "We actually did it." "Get us to that ship," Jisiak ordered. "They need help." Taiho didn't wait for the ships to connect. He put on a spacesuit and flew across the gap himself. The airlock of the silver ship was broken, so he cut through with emergency tools. Inside, the ship was dark and filled with smoke. He heard crying. Following the sound, Taiho moved through corridors made of material that looked like frozen light. Everything was beautiful, even damaged. This ship was built by beings far more advanced than humans. He found them in a small room. A tall figure lay on the ground, clearly dead, their body wrapped around a small child in protection. The child was maybe 7 or 8 years old by human standards. His skin was pale silver and his hair was white like snow. He had strange eyes that seemed to contain moving stars. The boy looked up at Taiho. He did not seem afraid. He seemed curious. "Hello," Taiho said softly, kneeling down. "I'm here to help. Can you understand me?" The boy said nothing. But when Taiho reached out his hand, the child took it. His small fingers were cold. Taiho carried him back to the horizon. The boy weighed almost nothing. He clung to Taiho's suit, his strange eyes never looking away from the human's face. In the medical bay, Dr. Myray examined the child. "He's not injured badly. Some shock. Some bruises. But physically, he'll be fine." She looked at Taiho with wonder. "Do you know what he is?" "Those read-ins." "This child has more energy in his body than our entire ship." Taiho didn't care about energy readings. He saw a scared boy who had just lost someone he loved. He sat beside the bed and stayed there. The child did not sleep. He just watched Taiho with those galaxy eyes. "I'm going to stay with you," Taiho told him. "You're not alone, okay? You're not alone." Hours passed. Taiho talked to fill the silence. He talked about Earth, about the ocean in Bizen, about the food he missed. He talked about stupid things, small things. The boy listened to everything. Near morning, Taiho fell asleep in his chair. He woke to find the boy had climbed out of bed and was sitting in his lap, head against his chest. "Contact!" Someone shouted through the communicator. "Multiple ships incoming." Hundreds of them. Taiho ran to the bridge, the boy holding his hand, refusing to let go. Outside the window, the stars disappeared. Ships filled the sky, massive, beautiful, terrible ships that made the horizon look like a toy. They were silver and gold and shaped like art. "We're being scanned," Myray said, her voice shaking. They're so advanced." "Taiho, these are Valerian ships. The Valerian Empire. They're one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy." A transmission came through. A voice like music spoke in perfect Korean. "Human vessel. Prepare to receive the Empress." Jisiok turned pale. "The Empress? The actual Empress?" Light gathered in the center of the bridge. It took form. It became a woman. She was 7 feet tall. Her skin glowed like captured starlight. Her eyes held actual galaxies inside them, swirling, moving, alive. Her hair floated around her like gravity meant nothing. She was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Beautiful and ancient and powerful beyond understanding. She looked at everyone on the bridge. Then her gaze found Taiho. She walked toward him, slowly. Each step made the air feel heavy. The boy still held Taiho's hand. The child looked up at this goddess and showed no fear. The Empress stopped in front of Taiho. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she spoke, and her words changed everything. "My son selected you as his father." Taiho stared at the Empress. His brain refused to understand her words. He looked down at the boy holding his hand, then back at the glowing goddess before him. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. "I think I heard wrong. You did not." The Empress's voice was calm like deep water. "My son, Prince Dowan, has selected you to be his father." Jisiok made a small choking sound. Myray grabbed her console for support. The other crew members looked ready to faint. Taiho felt the boy's hand tighten on his. "I don't understand," Taiho said. "I just found him a few hours ago. I'm nobody. I'm a scientist on a small human ship. I study bacteria and plants on new planets. I'm not. I can't be anyone's father, especially not a prince." The Empress tilted her head. The galaxies in her eyes swirled slowly. "You do not understand. Let me explain." She moved to a chair and sat down. Somehow, the simple human chair looked like a throne when she sat in it. "My son possesses a gift that appears once every 10,000 years among my people. We call it soul sight. He can see the true nature of any being. Not their face, not their words, not their actions. He sees their soul itself." She looked at Dowan with an expression that might have been love. "Since he was born, Dowan has looked upon billions of beings. Nobles, warriors, scholars, leaders of great worlds. All of them wanted to be chosen by him. All of them failed. Failed how? Myra asked quietly. He saw them truly, and he found them wanting. Some were cruel inside. Some were empty. Some were so filled with wanting things that there was no room for love. My son looked at the greatest beings in the galaxy and saw nothing worthy. The Empress turned back to Taiho. Until tonight. Until you. Taiho shook his head. I didn't do anything special. I heard him crying. I picked him up. Anyone would do that. No. The Empress's voice was sharp now. They would not. I have watched. The pirates who attacked his ship would have sold him for money. The nobles who served me would have used him for power. Even the guardian who died protecting him did so from duty, not love. Her eyes softened slightly. You carried a strange alien child through fire and darkness. You sat with him through the night. You talked to him about oceans and food because you did not want him to feel alone. You fell asleep in a chair beside his bed. That's just ... Being decent? Taiho said weakly. Yes, and decency is rarer than stars. The Empress stood. My son's choice is sacred in our culture. It cannot be questioned. It cannot be refused by me. For 10,000 years, the child with soul sight has chosen their parent, and that choice has never been wrong. Taiho's head was spinning. But he's your son. You're his mother. I am his Empress first. I was raised to be a ruler, not a parent. I have lived for 12,000 years. I have forgotten how to be ... warm. She said the word like it was foreign to her. Dowan needs something I cannot give him. He needs humanity. Ironically, it seems only a human can provide it. She looked at Taiho directly. I am not commanding you. I am asking, will you raise my son? The boy tugged at Taiho's sleeve. When Taiho looked down, Dowan spoke for the first time since they met. His voice was soft and sweet. I saw you, Dowan said. Inside, you are made of warm light. Everyone else is cold or empty or sharp, but you are warm. His strange eyes were filled with something like hope. Please, will you be my father? Taiho felt his heart break and heal at the same time. He kneeled down to look at the boy directly. Dowan, I don't know anything about being a father. I don't know anything about your people or your culture. I'll make mistakes. Lots of them. That's okay, Dowan said. You'll try? That's what matters. Taiho looked at this small alien prince with stars in his eyes, and he thought about his own childhood. Growing up alone. Wishing someone would choose him. Wishing someone would stay. He couldn't save himself as a child, but maybe he could save this one. Okay, he said. His voice was rough. I'll try. Dowan smiled. It was like watching the sunrise. He threw his arms around Taiho's neck and held on tight. Over the boy's shoulder, Taiho saw the Empress watching them. Something moved across her ancient, beautiful face. Something she quickly hid. Then it is decided, she said formally. Kim Taiho of Earth, you will accompany us to the throne world. You will be given the title of Royal Father and all the rights and protections that come with it. Wait, Taiho stood, still holding Dowan. What about my crew, my ship? They will be rewarded beyond imagination for their service tonight. We will repair their ship and give them technologies that will advance your species by centuries. She paused. But you must come with us. My son will not be separated from you now that he has chosen. Taiho looked at Jisiak. His old friend's eyes were wide, but he managed a shaky smile. Go, Jisiak said. This is insane, but ... go, when does anyone get a chance like this? I'll come back, Taiho said. I'll find a way to visit. You'd better. You still owe me money from that card game? Taiho laughed. It came out strange and wet. He was crying, he realized. From fear, from shock, from something else he couldn't name. The Empress raised her hand. Light gathered around them, Taiho, Dowan, and her. Say goodbye to your old life, Kim Taiho. Your new one begins now. The light grew bright. The horizon disappeared. When Taiho could see again, he was standing on a platform of pure crystal, looking out at something impossible. A palace floated in space. It was larger than any moon he had ever seen. Towers of light reached up toward distant stars. Ships moved around it like fish in an ocean. Everything glowed with soft gold and silver. "This is home," Dowan said, still in Taiho's arms. "Do you like it?" Taiho couldn't speak. It was too beautiful, too big, too much. The Empress walked past them toward a waiting group of servants. They bowed so low their heads touched the ground. "Prepare the royal father's quarters," she commanded. "He is to be given everything he needs. And send for the tutors. He has much to learn." She turned back to Taiho. "Rest tonight. Tomorrow your education begins. You will learn our language, our customs, our history. You will learn how to survive in a court full of people who will hate you." "Hate me? Why?" "Because you are human. Because you are not noble. Because you have something they all wanted and none of them could have." Her eyes were cold but not cruel. "They will try to destroy you, Kim Taiho, some with words, some with poison, some with knives in the dark." Fear gripped Taiho's heart. "Then how am I supposed to survive?" The Empress almost smiled. "That is what I am curious to see. You surprised me once tonight. Perhaps you will surprise me again." She turned and walked away, her light fading into the palace. Taiho stood there holding an alien prince staring at a floating palace, wondering how his life had changed so completely in a single night. Dowan patted his cheek gently. "Don't be scared, father. I'll protect you." Taiho looked at this small boy who thought he could protect a grown man in a world of gods and monsters. "No," Taiho said softly. "That's my job now. I'll protect you." Dowan smiled again. "See? That's why I chose you." A servant approached nervously. "Royal father, please follow me to your chambers." Taiho took a deep breath. He had faced pirates. He had survived impossible battles. He could face this too. "Lead the way," he said. And holding his new son close, Kim Taiho walked into his new life. 3 months had passed since Taiho arrived at the palace, and every day felt like drowning in an ocean he didn't understand. His quarters were larger than any building he had seen on Earth. The ceilings disappeared into soft light. The floors were made of something that felt like warm glass. Servants waited outside his door at all hours, ready to bring him anything he wanted. He hated it, not because it was uncomfortable, because it was lonely. Back on the horizon, he had shared meals with Jisiok and argued with Mireille about science. Here, everyone bowed to him and called him Royal Father and treated him like he might break. Everyone except Dowan. The boy followed him everywhere. At first, Taiho thought it was because Dowan needed him. Slowly, he realized it was also because Dowan was protecting him. The prince would glare at nobles who spoke rudely to Taiho. He would hold his hand. When walking through halls full of staring eyes, he would sit in Taiho's lap during boring meetings and whisper explanations about who was lying and who was honest. "That one hates you," Dowan would say, pointing at a smiling noble. "His soul is like green poison." "That one is scared of you," he would say about a frowning general. "Her soul is shaking. She thinks you will take her power." The soul sight was strange and wonderful and sometimes scary, but Taiho was grateful for it. Without Dowan's guidance, he would have trusted the wrong people many times already. The tutors came every morning. They taught Taiho the Valerian language, which had sounds his human throat struggled to make. They taught him history, 12,000 years of it, with the Empress at the center of everything. They taught him customs, how to bow, how to speak, how to eat, how to walk. Taiho learned quickly, but not quickly enough. Nobles laughed at his mistakes. Servants whispered about the strange human playing at being royalty. He heard the word animal more than once. He didn't let Dowan hear those words. He smiled and pretended everything was fine. But at night, alone in his too-big room, Taiho sometimes wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. One night he couldn't sleep. He walked to the gardens, the only place in the palace that felt real to him. The plants were alien, glowing with soft colors, but they still grew from soil. They still needed water and light. That was comforting. He found Dawan there, sitting on a bench, staring at the stars. "Can't sleep either?" Taiho asked, sitting beside him. Dawan shook his head. "Bad dreams. About what happened?" "The attack?" The boy nodded slowly. "I see Keeper dying. Over and over. I couldn't save him." Keeper had been Dawan's guardian, the one who died protecting him. Taiho hadn't known his name until now. "Do you want to tell me about him?" Taiho asked gently. "He was old. Really old. He told me stories about when the Empire was young. He said he remembered when Mother was just a princess." Dawan's voice was very small. "He was the only one who talked to me like I was real. Everyone else just saw the soul sight. They wanted me to look at them and approve them. Keeper just wanted me to be happy." Taiho put his arm around the boy. "He sounds like he was wonderful. He was—" Tears began to fall from Dawan's eyes, tears that glowed faintly, like liquid starlight. "I miss him. I miss him so much." I know. Taiho held him close. "You're allowed to miss him. You're allowed to be sad. That's not weakness. That's love." They sat together for a long time. Dawan cried until he had no more tears. Then he fell asleep against Taiho's chest, exhausted. Taiho carried him back to bed. As he was leaving, he noticed a shadow in the doorway. The Empress stood there, watching. "How long have you been there?" Taiho asked, keeping his voice quiet so he wouldn't wake Dawan. "Long enough." She stepped into the room, her glow dimmed to something almost soft. "He has not cried since the attack. The healers were worried. Valerian children who do not release grief can become damaged. He just needed someone to listen. Yes, he did." She looked at her sleeping son with an expression Taiho couldn't read. "I tried to visit him. Many times. But when I came to his door, I did not know what to say. What does an empress say to a grieving child? The same thing anyone says? I'm sorry. I'm here. I love you." The empress was quiet for a long moment. "I have not said those words in 3,000 years. Maybe you should start." She turned to look at Taiho. Her galaxy eyes were unreadable. "You speak to me very boldly for a human. You ask me to raise your son? That means I get to have opinions about his mother." Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe? Or amusement? "The nobles are right. You are strange." "Probably. But Dawan chose me anyway. Yes." She looked at her son again. "He did." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "The nobles are planning something. I do not know what yet. Be careful, Kim Taiho. You have made many enemies simply by existing." "I know. Dawan tells me about their souls." "Good, trust his sight. It has never been wrong." She paused. "And trust nothing else in this palace. Not the food? Not the gifts? Not the smiles? Nothing." She left before he could respond. Taiho sat in Dawan's room until morning, thinking about enemies and trust and a lonely empress who had forgotten how to say "I love you." The next day, Taiho changed his approach. He stopped trying to learn court manners. He stopped trying to fit in. Instead, he focused on being what Dawan needed, a father. He started cooking human food in the kitchens, teaching Dawan about Earth while they made simple dishes together. The palace chefs were horrified at first, but Dawan loved it. He loved getting his hands dirty. He loved learning about strange vegetables called potatoes and rice. Taiho told stories about his childhood in Bizan, the ocean, the fish markets, the crowded streets full of life. Dawan had never seen anything so chaotic or so alive. He asked endless questions. Why do humans live so close together? Because we like each other. Mostly, why do they yell so much? Because we're loud? It's how we show we care. That's very strange. Maybe, but it's also very warm. Slowly, Dawan began to change. He smiled more. He laughed sometimes, actually laughed, not the polite sounds the tutors had taught him. He started having opinions and arguing about things and being a real child instead of a silent, perfect prince. The Empress noticed. She began visiting their quarters just for a few minutes at a time. She would stand in the doorway and watch them cook or play or talk. She never joined them, but she was there. One evening, Taiho waved her inside. "Come help. Dowan is trying to make noodles." She stared at him like he had asked her to fly without a ship. "I do not cook. Neither did I until I had to." "Come on. It's not hard." Dowan looked up at his mother with wide, hopeful eyes. "Please, mother. Father says it's fun." The Empress of 1,000 worlds stood frozen in a doorway, faced with the most difficult decision of her long life. Then she stepped inside. Her hands glowed too bright at first. She burned the first batch of noodles completely. Dowan laughed so hard he fell off his chair. And somewhere in the chaos and smoke and failure, the Empress smiled. It was a small smile, quick and uncertain, like she had forgotten how. But it was real. And Taiho thought that maybe, just maybe, he was doing something right after all. Taiho knew this because Dowan had grabbed his cup before he could drink it. The boy's eyes were wide with fear. "Don't," Dowan whispered. "It's wrong. The tea is wrong." They were in a meeting room with 6 noble houses, important people who controlled entire star systems. They had invited Taiho to discuss cultural exchange. They had smiled and bowed and said kind words. Now they watched him with careful eyes, waiting for him to drink. Taiho looked at the tea, then at the nobles. Then he did something unexpected. He drank it anyway. Dowan screamed. The nobles leaned forward with eager eyes. Taiho felt fire spread through his body, burning from inside. He fell from his chair, hitting the floor hard. But he did not die. His body fought. Sweating, shaking, burning, but fighting. Human biology was strange and stubborn. Millions of years of evolution on a dangerous world had made humans resistant to many poisons. Not immune, but resistant. Taiho lay on the floor for 10 minutes, feeling like death. Then he stood up. The nobles stared at him with horror. "That was very rude," Taiho said, his voice rough but steady. "I came here to talk about culture. You tried to kill me." He walked to the door, holding Dowan's hand. "I don't think we have anything else to discuss." He made it to his quarters before he collapsed again. The palace healers came running. They worked on him for hours, pulling the remaining poison from his blood. "You should be dead," the head healer said, amazed. "This poison kills in seconds. How are you alive?" "Humans are hard to kill," Taiho said weakly. "We're stubborn like that." News of what happened spread through the palace. The human had survived a poison meant for gods. He had walked away from death and called his killers rude. The nobles who had tried to kill him were arrested. The Empress was not gentle with them. But more importantly, people began to look at Taiho differently. Not with respect, exactly. With something like fear. This strange human was harder to kill than expected. 2 weeks later, Lord Hyunjae challenged Taiho to a duel of honor. Lord Hyunjae was a warrior noble. He had fought in 100 battles. His body was enhanced with ancient technology that made him faster and stronger than any natural being. He had killed opponents with single strikes. The challenge was about insults to noble blood. In truth, it was about removing Taiho permanently in a way the Empress could not punish. "You don't have to accept," Dowan said, his small face tight with worry. "Nobody would blame you for refusing. Yes, they would." Taiho checked his reflection in a mirror. He looked pale and tired. "If I refuse, I'm a coward. Every noble in the palace will think they can push me around. I have to fight, but you'll lose, probably." Taiho kneeled to look at his son directly. "But sometimes you fight even when you know you'll lose. Because some things matter more than winning." "What things?" "Standing up. Not letting them see you're afraid." He hugged Dowan tightly. "Whatever happens, remember that I chose to be here. I chose to be your father. And I would make the same choice again." The duel took place in the grand arena. Thousands of Valerians came to watch. They expected to see a human die. Taiho wore simple clothes. He carried a basic sword human-made, brought from the horizon before it left. Lord Hyunjae wore gleaming armor and carried a blade that hummed with energy. The fight lasted 1 minute. Hyunjae moved like lightning. His first strike knocked Taiho's sword away. His second opened a cut across Taiho's chest. His third put Taiho on the ground. "Yield," Hyunjae said, blade at Taiho's throat. "Yield and I will make your death quick." Taiho grabbed the blade with his bare hand. Blood ran down his arm. He pulled himself up, the edge cutting deeper into his palm. "No," Hyunjae kicked him down. Taiho got up again. "Stay down, human." "No," another kick. Another rise. Another kick. Another rise. The crowd grew silent. They had come to see death. Instead, they saw something else. They saw a man who would not stop. Could not stop. His body was broken and bleeding, but his eyes never changed. Never showed fear. Never showed surrender. Hyunjae hit him again and again. Taiho fell down again and again. And he kept getting up. Why? Hyunjae finally shouted, frustration breaking through his noble calm. "Why won't you stay down?" "Because my son is watching." Taiho spat blood onto the arena floor. "And I want him to know that you don't have to win to be brave. You just have to stand up." From the royal box, Do-won was crying, but he was also standing, fists clenched, watching his father refuse to break. Hyunjae raised his sword for a killing blow. The crowd held their breath. "Enough!" The Empress's voice cut through the arena like thunder. She stood in the royal box, her light blazing so bright it hurt to see. "Lord Hyunjae, the human has proven his honor. He has faced death without fear. By the ancient laws of the duel, he has satisfied all requirements." Her eyes burned with cold fire. "Lower your weapon, but now—" Hyunjae lowered his sword. His face showed confusion and something like respect. "You are insane," he told Taiho quietly. "Completely insane, probably." Taiho smiled through bloody teeth. "But I'm still standing." He wasn't, actually. He collapsed immediately after Hyunjae walked away. The healers rushed to him, and he spent the next week recovering from injuries that should have killed him 3 times over. But something had changed. The nobles stopped calling him animal. They called him other things now: crazy, stubborn, dangerous, the human who wouldn't die, the human who wouldn't yield. Even Lord Hyunjae came to visit him during his recovery. He brought a gift, a sword of Valerian make, beautiful and deadly. "For a worthy opponent," Hyunjae said stiffly, "I have fought many beings. None of them got up as many times as you did. I do not understand it, but I respect it." Taiho accepted the sword. "Thank you. Maybe next time we can just talk instead of trying to kill each other." Hyunjae looked confused. "Where is the honor in talking?" "There isn't any. But there's also no bleeding." "I like that better." The noble left, shaking his head. Humans were strange. Do-won visited every hour. He brought drawings he had made, stories he had written, flowers from the garden. He curled up beside Taiho's bed and refused to leave. "You scared me," the boy said quietly. "I thought you were going to die?" "I know. I'm sorry." "And don't be sorry. Just don't do it again." Do-won looked at him with those star-filled eyes. "I can't lose another father. I already lost Keeper. I can't lose you too." Taiho pulled him close. "I'll try my best. I promise." "Good." The Do-won nestled against him. "Because I still have so much to teach you about the palace. And you still have to teach me about Earth. We have a lot of work to do." Taiho laughed, even though it hurt his broken ribs. "Yes, we do." Outside the window, the stars wheeled slowly past. Inside the room, a human and a prince held each other close. And somewhere in the palace, an empress who had not known worry in 3,000 years finally allowed herself to breathe. The Empress Yuna had ruled for 12,000 years. She had seen empires rise and fall like ocean waves. She had watched stars die and new ones be born. She had made decisions that affected billions of lives and had never hesitated, never doubted. Now she stood outside a kitchen door, afraid to knock. Inside she could hear laughter. Taiho's voice warm and teasing. Do-wan's voice high and happy. The smell of strange human food drifted through the door, something called pancakes that Taiho had been trying to teach the palace cooks to make. She had been coming here more and more often. At first, she told herself it was to check on her son. Then she told herself it was to observe the human's influence on the air. Now she stood in hallways and listened to her child laugh and felt something crack inside her chest. She had not laughed in 3,000 years. She had forgotten what it felt like. "You can come in, you know." Yuna actually jumped, like a common person surprised by a sudden sound. Taiho had opened the door without her noticing. "How did you know I was here?" she demanded. "Your light. It shows under the door." He smiled at her. That strange, warm, human smile that didn't seem to want anything from her. Do-wan is trying to flip a pancake by himself. You should see this. She shouldn't. She had work to do. Reports to read. Decisions to make. The galaxy did not rule itself. She walked inside anyway. The kitchen was a disaster. Flour covered every surface. Some kind of sticky liquid had spilled on the floor. Do-wan stood on a small stool, holding a pan that was much too big for him, trying to flip something that looked like a flat, brown circle. "Mother, watch!" He threw the pancake into the air. It flew too high, hit the ceiling, and stuck there. Everyone stared at it. "Well," Taiho said seriously, "that's one way to do it." Do-wan burst into laughter. After a moment, Taiho joined him. They laughed until tears ran down their faces, pointing at the pancake stuck to the ceiling. Yuna felt her lips twitch. Fighting it, losing, she laughed. It came out strange and rusty, like a door that hadn't been opened in years. But it was real. Her son stared at her with wide eyes. "Mother," he breathed. "You laughed?" Yes, I suppose I did." Do-wan threw himself at her, wrapping his arms around her waist. She froze, uncertain what to do. Physical affection was not something Valerian royalty practiced. But Taiho nodded at her, encouraging, and she slowly put her arms around her son. It felt strange. It felt warm. It felt like something she had been missing without knowing it was gone. After that day, she stopped pretending. She came to their quarters regularly. She learned to make pancakes and something called kimchi that burned her mouth and made her eyes water. She listened to Taiho's stories about Earth, about humans, about his small and chaotic life before the stars. "Why did you join the space program?" she asked one evening. Do-wan had fallen asleep on the couch between them, exhausted from playing. "I had nothing else." Taiho's voice was quiet. "No family. No real home. I grew up in state care, what we call an orphanage. A place for children without parents." He looked at Do-wan's sleeping face. "I know what it's like to want someone to choose you. To pick you out of everyone else and say, 'You're mine.' Nobody ever did that for me. Until Do-wan. Until Do-wan." He smiled softly. "He chose me. This small alien prince with stars in his eyes looked at me and decided I was worth something. That meant more than you can possibly understand." Yuna was quiet for a long time. "I understand more than you think." Taiho looked at her. "I was not born to rule," she said slowly. "There were others before me, older siblings, more suited to the throne. But they died. Wars, assassinations, accidents. I was the last one left. The crown came to me not because I was chosen, but because there was no one else. That must have been lonely." "I did not have time to be lonely. I had an empire to save. It was falling apart when I took the throne. Civil wars. External enemies. I spent my first 1,000 years just holding everything together." She looked at her hands, glowing softly in the dim light. "By the time things were stable, I had forgotten how to be anything other than the Empress. What were you before?" "I don't remember." Her voice was barely a whisper. "That is the worst part. I don't remember who I was before the crown." Taiho reached out and took her hand. She flinched at the contact, but she didn't pull away. His hand was warm, human warm, not Valerian warm. It felt different. It felt real. Maybe, he said carefully, you don't have to remember who you were. Maybe you can decide who you want to be now. I am the Empress. I cannot be anything else. You're also a mother. You're also someone who laughs at pancakes stuck to ceilings. He squeezed her hand gently. You're allowed to be more than one thing, Yuna. She stared at him. No one had called her by her name, just her name, without titles in 8,000 years. You're very bold, she said. So everyone keeps telling me. They sat in silence, hands still touching, watching their son sleep. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The galaxy noticed that the Empress was changing. She smiled sometimes in public. She delegated more tasks to her advisors. She spent hours away from the throne in places no one could find her. Rumors spread. Some said she was ill. Some said she was losing her power. Some said worse things. The nobles grew restless. If the Empress was weak, perhaps it was time for change. Old ambitions stirred in dark corners of the palace. But Yuna didn't care. For the first time in thousands of years, she had found something more important than power. One night, she found Taiho in the garden where they had first really talked. He was looking at the stars, his face thoughtful. What are you thinking about? She asked, sitting beside him. Home, Earth, I wonder sometimes if I made the right choice staying here. Do you regret it? No, he turned to look at her. I found family here. I found Dowan. And I found... He stopped. Found what? He was quiet for a long moment. You. The word hung in the air between them. I'm not... I don't expect anything, Taiho said quickly. I know what you are. I know what I am. There's a gap between us that might be impossible to cross. But I wanted you to know. These months with you and Dowan, they've been the happiest of my life. Yuna felt her heart, her ancient, careful heart beating faster. This was dangerous. This was foolish. This was everything she had been warned against for 12,000 years. She took his hand again. I have been alone for so long, she said quietly. I forgot that loneliness was even possible. Then you came. You, with your strange food and your silly jokes and your stubborn refusal to bow properly. You treated me like a person. Not a goddess. Not a ruler, just ... Nuna. Because that's who you are underneath everything, maybe? She looked at him, really looked, without the distance she usually kept. Dalwan chose you for himself. But I think I'm choosing you for me. Taiho's eyes widened. What does that mean? I don't know yet. She squeezed his hand. But I want to find out. Above them, the stars turned slowly. An empress and a human sat together in a garden, holding hands like ordinary people, wondering what tomorrow might bring. And in his bedroom, pretending to be asleep, a young prince with soul sight smiled. He had seen this coming since the beginning. His father's soul and his mother's soul fit together, perfectly warm light meeting cold starlight, each making the other complete. Everything was going according to plan. The warning came at midnight. Every alarm in the palace screamed at once. Red light flooded every corridor. Taiho ran to the command center, Dowan at his side. The boy refused to stay behind anymore. After everything they had faced together, Taiho had stopped trying to protect him from the truth. The truth, this time, was terrible. The command center was chaos. Officers shouted at each other. Screens showed images that made Taiho's blood freeze, ships, thousands of them. Millions of them. They filled the space around the throne world like a swarm of locusts blocking out the sun. They were not Valerian. They were black and angular and wrong shapes that hurt to look at, designs that made no natural sense. The Void Collective, someone whispered. Taiho had heard of them. Everyone had. They were the nightmare that parents used to scare children. An ancient machine intelligence that had existed since before the Valerian Empire was born. They had been quiet for 8,000 years, watching, waiting. Now they were here. The Empress stood at the center of the room, her light blazing brighter than Taiho had ever seen. Her face was hard as stone. "Status report," she commanded. "They dropped out of hyperspace 10 minutes ago. Our outer defenses have been destroyed. Fleet strength is estimated at 3 million vessels. Our own fleet is 200,000. The officer's voice shook. "Your Majesty, we cannot win this. Show me their formation." Screens changed. The collective ships moved in perfect patterns, mathematical and precise. There were no gaps, no weaknesses. They fought like a single mind because they were a single mind, millions of ships controlled by 12 core intelligences working in perfect harmony. "They're demanding our surrender," another officer reported. "If we refuse, they will destroy the throne world and harvest our population for ... conversion." Taiho felt sick. He had read about conversion. The collective did not kill. They absorbed. They took living beings and made them part of the machine. A fate worse than death. "We will not surrender," the Empress said. Her voice was calm, but Taiho could see her hands shaking slightly. Even she was afraid. "Prepare the fleet for battle, and begin evacuation of civilian areas. Mother?" Dawan's small voice cut through the noise. Everyone turned to look at him. "I need to stay. My soul sight might help." "Absolutely not. You will be evacuated with the first wave." "No," the boy stepped forward, his star-filled eyes glowing brighter. "I can see them, Mother. I can see their souls. They're not empty. They're sad. They're lonely. They forgot why they exist." The Empress stared at her son. "What do you mean?" Before Dowan could answer, new contacts appeared on the screen. Small ships, primitive by galactic standards. Human ships. "This is Captain Park Jishyok of the Earth Defense Vessel Horizon to Valerian Command." Jishyok's voice crackled through the speakers. "We heard you might need some help." Taiho laughed, despite everything. "Jishyok, you crazy fool. What are you doing here?" "We've been monitoring Valerian space since you left. Humans look after our own, remember?" A pause. "Besides, you still owe me money." More human ships appeared. 50, then 100, then 200. A small fleet compared to the collective's millions, but they were here. "We've been studying your enemy," Dr. Han Murray's voice came through. "Their tactics are predictable. Machine perfect, but predictable. We have some ideas." The Empress looked at the human fleet, then at Taiho. "Your people came to die beside you?" "They came to fight." Taiho stepped forward. "And they might have a point. The collective thinks in straight lines. Humans don't. We're chaotic. We're unpredictable. We might be able to create openings that your fleet can use." For the next hour, they planned. Human creativity combined with Valerian power. Insane tactics that no machine would expect because no sane species would try them. Then the battle began. It was hell. The collective came in waves, endless and perfect. Valerian ships fought bravely, but they were outnumbered 15 to 1. Explosions lit the darkness. Thousands died in the first minutes. Then the humans struck. They flew like madmen. They rammed themselves into enemy formations and spun away at the last second. They broadcast false signals and created phantom fleets. They used weapons in ways they were never designed to be used. One captain flew his damaged ship directly into a collective command vessel, ejecting at the last moment. The collective adapted quickly, they always did. But every adaptation took time. Every moment of confusion created an opening. And the Valerians used those openings. Hours passed. The battle raged across the system. The throne world burned in a dozen places, but it had not fallen. Taiho watched it all from the command center. He couldn't fight, he had no ship, no training. But he could watch, and he could think. "They're not trying to win," he said suddenly. The Empress turned to him. "What? The collective? They could have overwhelmed us by now if they committed everything. But they're holding back. Why?" Dowan tugged at his sleeve. "Because they're testing us. They want to see if we're worth absorbing." How do you know that? I can see them. The boy's eyes were blazing now, brighter than stars. Their souls are so old, Father. So tired. They've existed for millions of years, and they forgot what it felt like to feel anything. They're looking for something. Something alive. Something that can remind them why existence matters. An idea formed in Taiho's mind. A crazy, impossible, very human idea. I need a ship, he said. What? The Empress grabbed his arm. You can't fly? You have no training. I don't need to fight. I just need to talk. Talk? To the collective? Dawan says they're lonely. He says they forgot why existence matters. Taiho looked at her with calm certainty. I'm good at reminding people about that. It's kind of my specialty. This is suicide. Maybe, but Dawan was right before about me, about you, about everything. His soul sight doesn't lie. He took both her hands. I have to try. If there's even a chance I can stop this war without more death, I have to try. The Empress looked at him for a long moment. Then she pulled him close and kissed him. It was the first time she had done that. It was fierce and desperate and full of everything she couldn't say. Come back, she whispered against his lips. That's an order from your Empress. Yes, ma'am. 20 minutes later, Taiho flew a small shuttle toward the heart of the collective fleet. He broadcast on all frequencies, making sure every machine could hear him. My name is Ken Taiho. I'm human. I want to talk. Silence. Then a response, not words, but a signal that somehow carried meaning. Why should we listen? Because you came here looking for something. Not conquest you could have won hours ago. You're looking for a reason. A purpose. Something to fill the emptiness. How do you know this? Because my son can see souls. He looked at you and saw loneliness. He saw beings who have lived so long they forgot what living meant. Silence again. Longer this time. We were not always machines, I know. We chose this, transcendence, eternity. We thought IT would be freedom. Instead, IT was a prison. Then choose something else. What? That's up to you. But you don't have to stay what you are. Nothing does. Everything can change. Everything can grow. Taiho's voice was steady. That's what being alive means. The freedom to become something new. More silence. Taiho floated in darkness, surrounded by millions of ships that could destroy him in an instant. Then something incredible happened. 3 of the 12 collective core minds broke away. Their ships, thousands of them, stopped fighting and moved aside. We remember, they said. We remember why we existed. We want to remember more. The remaining 9 minds screamed in rage. They turned on the traitors. The collective began fighting itself. And in that chaos, the Valerian and human fleets struck together. They hit the confused enemy with everything they had. The battle lasted 3 more hours. When it ended, the remaining collective forces retreated into deep space. The 3 minds that had defected asked for asylum, the first collective, beings to choose their own path in 8,000 years. Taiho's shuttle returned to the palace. He stepped out to find Dawan and Yuna waiting for him. Dawan ran into his arms. You did it. You actually did it. Yuna walked forward more slowly. Her face was unreadable. Then she pulled him into an embrace so tight it hurt. Never do that again, she whispered. I can't promise that. I know. She pulled back to look at him. That's what terrifies me about loving you. Around them, the palace was damaged but standing. The throne world was scarred but alive. And in the sky, human and Valerian ships flew side by side, celebrating a victory that should have been impossible. A human had talked a machine god into remembering its soul. Humanity had proven its worth, and everything was about to change. 1 year had passed since the war. The palace gardens were more beautiful than ever, rebuilt with both Valerian light plants and earth flowers that Taiho had requested from home. Cherry blossoms bloomed beside crystalline roses. The air smelled like spring on 2 worlds at once. Taiho sat on a bench beside the quantum ponds, watching Dawan try to skip stones across the water. The boy had grown in the past year taller, more confident. His silver hair longer now, and often messy from playing instead of being perfectly styled by servants. Like this, Taiho said, demonstrating the wrist motion. Flat and fast, let it spin, Dowan tried again. The stone skipped once, twice, 3 times before sinking. I did it. He spun around, grinning. Did you see? 3 times. I saw. You're getting better? Keeper used to tell me about games like this. Dowan's smile softened but didn't fade. He said children on many worlds play similar things, throwing small objects into water and counting how many times they bounce. It's one of the things that connects species, I think. Taiho patted the bench beside him. Simple joys. The things that make us feel alive. Dowan sat down, pressing close to his father. In the past year, he had stopped calling Taiho Royal Father in public. It was always just father now, or sometimes dad when he was being playful. The nobles had been scandalized at first. Now they were used to it. Father, can I show you something? Always. The boy turned to face him. His star-filled eyes began to glow brighter. My soul sight has been growing, changing. The healers say it's because I'm happy now. The gift responds to emotional growth. What can you do now? I can share what I see, just a little, with people I trust. He reached out and touched Taiho's hand. Do you want to see yourself the way I see you? Taiho's breath caught. Yes. Light flowed from Dowan's fingers into Taiho's mind. And suddenly he could see it, his own soul, as his son saw it. It was warm. A deep, steady warmth like coals that never went cold. It glowed golden orange, shot through with threads of stubborn silver that refused to break no matter how much pressure was applied. There were scars, dark places where pain had lived, but the scars had become part of the pattern, making the whole thing stronger. And woven through everything was love, not just one kind. Love for a son, love for a partner, love for friends far away, love for life itself. It filled every corner of his soul like light filling a room. That's me, Taiho whispered. That's you. Dowan pulled his hand back, and the vision faded. That's why I chose you. I saw that warmth the first moment we met. Everyone else was cold or sharp or hungry. You were just warm. You wanted to help because helping was right, not because you wanted something. Taiho wiped his eyes. He was crying. Thank you for showing me that. Thank you for being that. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the light play across the water. Footsteps approached. Yuna walked through the garden toward them, her glow dimmed to something soft and approachable. She wore simpler clothes these days, still beautiful, still clearly royal, but not the overwhelming formal dress she used to never remove. She sat on Taiho's other side, and Dowan immediately stretched out to put his head in her lap. She stroked his hair gently, a gesture that would have been impossible a year ago. The council meeting is finished, she said. And humanity has been granted full membership in the Galactic Concordat. Taiho sat up straight. What? Already? I thought that took centuries of negotiation. Normally, yes. But I presented the council with evidence they could not ignore. Tactical recordings from the battle. Testimonies from the converted collective minds. Records of human actions throughout the war. She smiled slightly. I also threatened to withdraw the Valerian Empire from the Concordat entirely if they refused. You threatened that? I would have done it too. Her voice was calm but certain. Humanity earned its place among the stars. They fought beside us when they had no reason to. They died beside us when they could have run. One human walked into the heart of an enemy fleet and talked ancient machines into remembering their souls. She looked at him with something like wonder. Your species is very young, Kim Taiho, but you carry something the older races have forgotten. What's that? Hope. She took his hand. You believe tomorrow can be better than today. You believe individuals can make a difference. You believe that the right words at the right moment can change the course of history. She shook her head slowly. I have lived for 12,000 years, and I had forgotten that such beliefs were possible. Until a human reminded you? Until you reminded me? Dawan made a small sound from Yuna's lap. Are you two going to be romantic now? Because I'm right here. They both laughed. Yuna ruffled his hair. Go throw more stones in the water, troublemaker. Fine, but you owe me dessert later. You drive a hard bargain, my son. I learned from my father. He ran off toward the pond, leaving them alone. Yuna leaned against Taiho's shoulder. It was a simple gesture, but from her it meant everything. An empress did not lean on anyone. But Yuna had learned that she could be more than an empress. The galaxy is going to change, she said quietly. Humanity spreading across the stars, the Concordat growing, the converted collective minds sharing their knowledge. There will be problems, conflicts, growing pains. There always are. You ready for that? Taiho watched his son skipping stones in the alien sunlight. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, a lonely orphan from Bazan who had nothing left on Earth, a scientist on a small ship who had just wanted to help, a man who had been chosen by a child with stars in his eyes. I'm ready for whatever comes, he said. As long as I have my family. Yuna lifted her head and kissed his cheek. You have us always. Then I'm ready. Evening came slowly to the throne world. The three suns set one by one, painting the sky in colors that Earth had never seen. Dawan returned, tired from playing, and demanded to be carried. Taiho lifted him easily, the boy's arms wrapping around his neck. Family time, Dawan announced, just as he had a year ago after the war. Politics can wait. As you command, Your Highness, Yuna said with mock seriousness. They walked together toward the palace, a human, an empress, and a prince with soul sight, an impossible family formed by chance and choice and stubborn refusal to give up on each other. Behind them, the stars came out one by one. The same stars that humans had looked up at for thousands of years, dreaming of the future. Now that future had arrived, and it was stranger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. Taiho thought about his younger self, the lonely boy in the orphanage who had wished every night for someone to choose him. He wished he could go back and tell that boy, hold on. Keep going, your family is waiting for you in the stars. Dawan mumbled something sleepy against his shoulder. What was that? I said I love you, Dad. 3 simple words. The most powerful words in any language on any world. I love you too. Taiho held his son close. I love you both. Yuna's hand found his in the darkness. Her light was soft, warm, not the cold blaze of an empress, but the gentle glow of a woman who had finally remembered how to love. The palace doors opened before them. Somewhere inside, servants were preparing dinner. Somewhere in the sky, human ships flew patrol routes beside Valerian vessels. Somewhere in deep space, the converted collective minds were learning what it meant to choose their own path. And here, walking through a garden of 2 worlds' flowers, a family went home. The universe was vast and ancient and full of wonders. It had existed for billions of years before humanity crawled out of its ocean and looked up at the sky. But on this night, in this moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was this: a father carrying his tired son, holding hands with the woman he loved, walking toward warmth and light and home. What mattered was family. What mattered was hope. And that was enough. That would always be enough. The stars watched over them, ancient and patient and full of possibility. And somewhere out there, other lonely souls looked up at those same stars and wondered if they would ever find where they belonged. They would. The universe was stranger than anyone knew, and love found a way. It always did,